President Buhari directs security agencies to clamp down on illegal refineries.
Presidency says Nigeria remains united despite U.S. predictions of collapse.
Explosion in Jalingo leaves 11 persons injured.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss INEC's 2023 election project plan.
Now, anyone wishing to carry out a project ought to have a plan and count the cost of execution to ascertain that there are sufficient resources for the smooth execution and completion of the project.
That's true, Nadabo, and that is exactly what the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, displayed last week when it unveiled the election project plan for the 2023 general polls, as well as its 2022 to 2026 strategic plan.
And while the 2022-2026 strategic plan is a blueprint and pragmatic roadmap that will serve as a practical guide for INEC's work in the next 5 years, the election project plan outlines the activities of INEC departments and directorates with timelines towards the successful conduct of the 2023 general elections built for February and March next year.
And that is where all attention is now focused. The 2023 elections are just about 9 months away, and it's considered a short time, as it were, for the electoral umpire, which has the mandate of coordinating all activities and resources towards the conduct of free, fair, credible, and inclusive general polls in line with the global professional standards next year.
And the INEC's election project plan therefore dwells on risk management, budgeting, administration, and resource deployment with the specific objectives of delivering cost-efficient but quality elections, create a level playing field for all candidates and political parties, as well as ensure the neutrality and accountability of the electoral umpire in the course of administering the processes of the 2023 general elections.
And talking about cost efficiency, Nadabo, INEC has announced that administering the next year's elections will cost the nation some 305 billion naira. And that is well over 116 billion naira higher than the amount that is spent on the 2019 polls. Now, INEC has also indicated that of the projected 305 billion naira, about 27 billion will be set aside for possible runoff elections, if any, in the 2023 polls. And this speaks volumes of the humongous cost of conducting elections in our country.
Truly humongous indeed. And elections in Nigeria are quite expensive, really. And when one considers the number of participating political parties and the corresponding quantity of election materials such as ballot papers, result sheets, cubicles, and ballot boxes usually deployed by INEC, most of which are either printed or manufactured abroad.
Of course, INEC has already indicated in the project plan that over 230 billion naira, that's representing about 78% of the total budget, will be spent on some of the critical items you just mentioned, and these include ballot papers, operational vehicles, ballot boxes, and allowances of ad hoc staff, the printing of result sheets, logistics, and procurement of accreditation devices for the elections.
And the INEC's 2023 election project plan will cater for about 100 million registered voters who are expected to cast their votes in more than 176,000 polling units across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Kingsley?
So, on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus will be on unpacking the major components of INEC's 2023 election project plan and the methodology for its implementation. On that note, I welcome you to today's edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabo Usman, also welcoming you to the program, We are reaching you on the network service of the NTA from our studios here in Abuja, the nation's capital. We will bring you our complimentary segments at the appropriate time, but for now, here's the morning news highlights with Nolan Abel-Abe. Good morning, Nolan.
Good morning, Nadabo and Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. The presidency has described as tautology predictions by the United States about Nigeria collapsing. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, in a statement, cites several of such predictions by different institutions and personalities in the U.S., as well as those done in collaboration with Nigerian lobbyists, insisting that national unity is paramount despite the odds. The presidential spokesman expresses hope that the United States and Nigeria are forging ahead in fighting terrorism, and that the dream of our founding fathers of a strong, united and prosperous Nigeria remains very much intact. The owner of the illegal bunkering site at Abaeze Forest in Ohaji, Egbema local government area of Imo State, Okenze Onyenwoke, has been declared wanted. Imo State Commissioner for Petroleum Resources, Goodluck Opia, made this known in a statement. Opia indicates that the illegal crude oil refining site is allegedly owned by one Okenze Onyenwoke. The statement also quotes the commissioner as alleging that the perpetrators are indigents of neighboring states whose acts are destroying the means of livelihood of the Ohaji people. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed armed forces, security and intelligence agencies to intensify clampdown on illegal refineries following reported death of scores of people after an illegal refinery exploded at Abaeze Forest in Ohaji Egbema local government area of Imo State. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, President said those behind the act should be fished out and brought to justice. The President commiserates with families of the victims of Ohaji Egbema community and the government and people of Imo State, and urged community leaders and security agencies to forestall future reoccurrence. In another development, 11 people have sustained injuries in a second bomb blast that occurred at Nukai quarters in Jalingo. It was reported that no life was lost in the incident.
11 persons were wounded, though not severe. Immediately, the Tarabasi Police Command swept into action and sent men of the bomb department. They took over the place, cordoned the area, now engage themselves in sweeping the whole environment to avoid any blast again.
Still on security, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has directed personnel of the force to take full advantage of the police health care facilities in their respective commands and formations, especially in light of the recent acquisition and distribution of hospital equipment for both basic and advanced health services to police hospitals, clinics and cottage health centers across the country. The IGP, in a statement, notes that the services of police hospitals are not restricted to police personnel alone, as members of the public can equally access and benefit from the services rendered at the facilities. The IGP equally encouraged personnel to engage in physical exercises, medical checks and good diet to improve their living conditions and reduce avoidable death while on duty. Doing good to all, especially feeding fasting Muslims, is encouraged in the spirit of Ramadan, and a number of Islamic institutions are engaging in the practice. The Al-Habibiyya Islamic Society is one of such institutions that has been feeding thousands of Muslims at its Guzape Jumad Mosque premises in Abuja at the breaking of fast.
The essence of this are many. One, it's answering the call of Allah that has encouraged us, asked us to help other people in the spirit of Ramadan, which is the essence of you understanding what other people are passing through. And we know one thing, when food is out of one's problem, it's almost solved.
That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Nadabo after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. Stay with us.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. These new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
Ajaye go gym. You won't go shake your body. Instead they make it calm down. He the farm say he sabi. You want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you not to pass your power. You want to show yourself, oh. Ajaye.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, exclusively with Professor Umar Garba Dambata, Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC.
We have unveiled the 622 as a toll-free line through which consumers can be able to lodge their complaints. And we have introduced the 112 as a national emergency number.
This edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from technology, entertainment, economy, media, politics, family, and lots more. Pick up your copy and get abreast with issues and trending features within our space. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Did you know that a quarter of the world's deaths from malaria is in Nigeria? And the reason being a mosquito that spreads malaria, a disease that puts everyone's life in distress. We believe that protection and prevention is the best cure in the fight to end malaria. Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So, spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our number one choice.
I find the strength I need every time that I look into your eyes. You show me love. I know they worry, 'cause I know, say you did by my side. You show. No matter what I do, you love me unconditionally. You show up for me every day. No matter when I show you, you show me love. You show. No matter when I show you, you show me love. You show. No matter when
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Up next is business news with our correspondent, Comfort Amodu.
The International Monetary Fund during the meeting projected that the global economic growth will slow from an estimated 6.1% in 2021 to 3.6% in 2022 and 2023. This is 0.8 and 0.2 percentage points lower than the projection for 2022 and 2023. Factors responsible, as identified by the IMF, are Russia-Ukraine war and economic sanctions imposed on Moscow.
A very significant repercussion is increasing inflation. With rising food and fuel prices, they are severely straining the budgets of ordinary families.
IMF upward revision of Nigeria's real GDP growth for 2022 is premised on the increase in crude oil price. But if you look at the MTF document of Nigeria, the projection for 3.4% is anchored not just on crude oil price, but also on the activity on the non-oil sector. So the IMF projection, yes, it's a good signal for the Nigerian economy, but anchoring it on on the increase in crude oil price is something that still signals volatility.
However, Nigeria's economy is projected to grow by 3.1% by 2023 from the 2.7% it earlier projected.
The FX market is also bleeding. So pretty much I think what we need to do is a bit more strategic, a bit more, plan better, sit down, strategically, critically bring out ways to manage the subsidy regime better. But if we tactically, strategically sit and look at how to be a bit more prudent with our fuel subsidy management, I think that will help us a whole lot, because if we are getting such petrodollar income and then we're still spending so much subsidizing petroleum products, yes, the World Bank, the IMF, they're all saying that we should remove subsidy. I don't think we should remove subsidy at this time, because it's going to hurt the economy based on we already have high cost of production that is leading to a lot of inflation in Nigeria. So if you do that, it's going to actually, the multiplier effect will be very negative on the economy.
With Business News, Comfort Amodu.
Well, many thanks, Comfort Amodu, for the business package. Coming up next on the program is the newspaper review.
Right, this is Parivia Baya Toyib is right here with us in the studios. Baya, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Yusuf.
Welcome, Baya.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good. All right, you have the Nation, I have the Punch. Punch has a fairly busy window page, beginning with the headlines above the name flag. Federal government records 2.23 trillion naira fiscal deficit in 3 months. That's according to the Central Bank of Nigeria report. Buhari orders arrest of Imo illegal refineries operators. PDP and others fume over killings of 12,250 APC mourn. Lawan, Aregbesola and others mourn Alafin and Gbajabiamila's chieftaincy installation suspended. No Asu Rock cabal can impose president on Nigerians. That's according to AIM. ASU faults federal government's negotiation, a continued strike. This story has a double-decker headline and a number of riders. This is on 2023. Consensus plan for Jonathan unsettles APC. Tinubu and Osinbajo camps and others kick. Consensus plan for Jonathan unsettles APC, Tinubu and Osinbajo camps and others kick. Jonathan's backers in dilemma over APC's past attacks on ex-president. Fear rejection. Aspirants looking for consensus are lazy. Nobody will impose candidate. That's according to Tinubu group. VP will emerge candidates. That's as what the supporters are saying. Yaya Bello will beat GEG. That's good luck, Billy Jonathan, according to Yaya Bello's campaign council. Discuss reject 2,495.3 megawatts in 1 week. That's a report by the federal government. Bandits abduct Kaduna woman and daughter, demand 100 million naira ransom. Presidency accuses Kuka and others of blackmailing Nigeria in the U.S. And the photograph there on the front page is a scene out of Sri Lanka where university students were seen protesting outside the residence of the Prime Minister during a demonstration over the country's crippling economic crisis. Honorable.
Okay, thank you, Kingsley. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning and then see the stories you have therein. On the front page, you have some few stories really starting from the ones above the masthead. We have 3 stories there. And one of which is INEC raises security red flag, and then 42 attacks in 14 states, it says. There's details of that on page 28. Still on page 28, death toll raises 230 in Imo explosion, with the rider the Buhari orders operators arrest. Buhari orders operators arrest. On pages 4 and 5, there are 2 stories. The one is Macron, first French president in 20 years to win re-election, page 4. On page 5, federal lawmakers abusing their offices, ICPC alleges. Now, moving down a little into the body of the page here, we have under the masthead, federal government, Sokoto, to repatriate 50,000 Niger refugees. Details on page 27. And on page 13, foreign investments drop. Still coming down, Alafin's unfulfilled plans. The riders aborted visit to Ooni's palace, chieftaincy title for Bajabia Miller, and a gift of furnished houses to wives. You get details of that too on page 4. The African Development Bank warns of looming food crisis, still on page 4. North elders split over PDP consensus candidates. Northern Elders Forum's Unongo and Ahmed differ. They differ as such. Quoting them here, the paper says, we felt we should present the two and let them choose between themselves, says Unongo. While Baba Ahmed says, candidates' fate should be left to party delegates and voters to decide. Now finally, at the foot of the page, we have NDLEA seizes cocaine hidden in tea bags at Lagos Abuja airports. Details of that on page 8. Bayo?
Thank you, Yusuf. Let's start with the demise of the Alafin of Oyo, Obalamidi Adeyemi, who passed on over the weekend. He was accorded burial on Saturday. President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled the people of Oyo State and the people of the ancient town of Oyo. He was aged 83. He was born in 1938 and said to have ruled Oyo as Alafin from the Akul-Odu ruling house for 52 years. Many describe him as the longest reigning monarch in our domain. There are condolences from across the country to the people of Oyo State and the Oyo traditional home, the Oyo itself. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the immediate arrest of persons who were involved in the illegal refinery in Imo. The reports indicate that their toll in the illegal refinery has reached 110 persons. The last body that was discovered was that of a pregnant woman, and nearly all the bodies are said to have been charred beyond recognition. This is the failure of the immediate community intelligence. When people are doing things illegally within your area and you see it and you keep quiet, when the consequences come, it has no limit to those who are perpetrating it. Innocent persons will become victims. Presently, the man in charge of the National Emergency Management Agency in the area says they are waiting for the commissioners for environment and commissioners for Imo State to accord mass burial to the victims because the bodies have all been charred beyond recognition. It was also said that the area where the illegal refinery was operating was also a market, and that is why the death toll has been so massive. Now, in the area of politics, the First Lady, Aisha Buhari, has enjoined political parties to consider the onerous task of making women as their running mate in contesting several positions across the country. Haji Aisha Buhari addressed presidential aspirants across parties when she hosted them to Ramadan Iftar over last weekend. She says it was high time that women were adopted as running mate at the levels, considering their voting strength as well as the nature of their involvement. She emphasized that fair play for women in politics is to ensure that greater participation as well as in elective positions. The First Lady urged the focus on issues and strengthen the nation's unity so that the bond of brotherhood and cohesion will be strengthened. He enjoined all to ensure tolerance, fair play, and avoid violence and any tendencies of causing bridges that have already been built. There were responses. Professor Osarihime Osubo, who represented Vice President, said their approach will be politics without bitterness. The APC leader Bola Ahmed Tinubu was also there, says that their campaign will have on peace, unity, and brotherhood. Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State also emphasized unity and national cohesion, while Governor Bala Mohammed, who was also there, currently an aspirant, promised to play the game according to humility and mutual respect. Meanwhile, on the consensus front, the Northern Elders Forum has issued a statement to distance itself from the pronouncement of endorsing two of the People's Democratic Party candidates' consensus. The first to denounce this was Ambassador Yahya Kwande, who says he is the second in command to the Northern Elders Forum and at no time was there any meeting. Following that, Professor Angu Abdullahi clarified that he made the pronouncement in his personal capacity as Magajin Rafi Zazao. 4 aspirants of the People's Democratic Party had mooted the idea of a consensus candidate and consulted former military President General Ibrahim Babangida for further consultation. He, in turn, invited some northern elders and invited them to return to Mida for a result. However, before they could return, one of the 4, the quartet of the consensus candidate, readily went and submitted his expression of interest from. The 3 others went, and then they heard the announcement that 2 of them have been selected as consensus. While this dispute is going on, Mr. Elder Statesman Paul Unongo, who is the chairman of the Northern Elders Congress Council, says that the whole idea of consensus was mooted by him, and he is in agreement with the outcome of the consensus because he says that the initiative was to ensure that the candidate evolved from North Central, which has never produced a candidate.
All right, Bayo, let's quickly bring in some other facts.
Yes.
And discuss some of the leading stories. The passing of the Alafin of Oyo and his burial, those stories are on the front pages. We also have a detail on page 11 of the Punch newspaper. And the subtitle there is "Nobody was buried with Alafin of Oyo." This report is quoting the Palace's Director of Media and Publicity, Mr. Bode Duro Jaye, that there was no human sacrifice for the burial of Kabiesi, that the Abobaku, which was later changed to Olokun Esin, is an old tradition that's been outmoded even before the pre-colonial times, and that nothing of that sort happened. Because there were some, usually you would know that there are rumors of human sacrifice for the burial of high personages, and this rebuttal is very important coming from the palace.
Yes. There was need for that clarification because it's not only even in Nigeria, across West African region, they believe that when the royalty die, they should not be left to go alone. Some other persons must accompany him in the grave to go and serve him in the world beyond. So they kill people and bury them. That is the the speculation that is going there. But it's good that at least it's been refuted. And there's also the traditionalists who are also protesting that the Alafin, he is by name Abdul Hamid or Lamidi Adeyemi, and he's a Muslim, and so he was accorded Islamic burial. But the traditionalists are saying that he was installed as a traditional ruler, not as a Muslim ruler, and therefore they should not allow Islam or Christianity to intrude into what is purely traditional. And well,
that's right. Well, the idea of human sacrifice is virtually not existent anywhere in the world now. But let's not forget that centuries ago, there also used to be human sacrifices even in Europe. Up to China, during some of the dynasties, if the king or the emperor passed, members of his household, including the wives or concubines, were also buried along with it. But of course, all of those now are deemed to be against the fundamental human rights of any individual to be buried along with royalty or other high personage. Now, the other story, of course, has to do with the illegal refinery that went up in flames. The first question to ask is, why is anybody surprised that this has happened? That's one. And secondly, the Imo State Commissioner, we also had that in our news, in charge of petroleum resources and others, has declared the owner of the site wanted. And the owner of the site who has been declared wanted is even named, which means that people knew that they knew him, and they knew that such activities were going on there, and that there were hundreds of persons or tens of persons and vehicles from all over, southeast, south, and perhaps elsewhere, come and take products. So this was an illegal activity in plain sight, and nobody did anything about it. So is it after the horse has bolted that you're now seeking to shut the stable door? I mean, let's face it. And then you also ask yourself, look, people are going for this product because the big grammar we speak about refineries, whether complex refineries or whether modular refineries, those things are not materializing. And people need this product. So why don't you make the products available? They said if you build modular refineries, one was supposed to have been established in Imo and another one elsewhere. What is the big deal? They say modular refineries are cheaper than the refineries complex such as you have in Port Harcourt or in Kaduna. So why don't you get this instead of allowing all this fire and all kinds of things that pollute the environment and then, of course, inevitably result in the kind of disaster we saw at the weekend?
Kesley, you see, this is just one out of many bio, talking about these refineries, the illegal ones as such. There are so many there. And of course, this is just an eye-opener to security men and of course to the government, talking about having to really get them now flushed out completely, because this is, one accident or incident too many, having to have claimed 130 lives, charred beyond recognition. Now we're awaiting mass burial. And of course, one must say that it's not the only one around. And when you get down to River State, remember here, Kinsley, we talked about, the soot pollution in River State, and of course, how the governor came out and then named certain people, named certain organizations that are, involved in this thing, and they've been sought for by the police. Nothing else was heard about them. Anyway, were they caught? They were not caught or whatever. Nobody knows.
The approach the governor took was to call the local government chairman and say that everybody go to a local government area where there is a legal refinery. I want you to dismantle it, and for each one you dismantle, this is the amount I'm giving. Where I find that you are collaborating with them or covering up, I will remove you and you'll be held accountable. And before you know, within the period of a month, they've been able to uproot all these illegal refineries. The point to emphasize is not only the security. The security cannot be everywhere, but there was a community around that area. They knew what was going on, but they kept mum. But when the consequences came now, it is not only the people who are operating around there, all who are within the surrounding and the vicinity. For instance,
and even the security.
The paper is reporting that the latest body that was found was that of a pregnant woman, innocent woman who was perhaps going her own way and became a victim of the fire that engulfed the whole place. So if the people there said, look, there's something illegal going on here, they would have needed this stitch in time that would have saved 110 lives that we have?
Well, there is now a presidential order to really get to the bottom of the issue at the moment, and then how I wish this order is going to be backed up by real force and implementation strategies to get these things.
Very important, because really. Bayo reminded us of what happened in Rivers. That locality, where is the local government chairman?
Yes.
Where are the traditional rulers? Where is the DPO? Where are the DSS officers? They were supposed to have DSS officers everywhere. Where are the civil defense officers? As you said, these activities were going on, and everybody looked the other way. The other way. But the critical thing is that people were refining illegally, probably using stolen crude or otherwise. But the fact is that there is a need for that product. How do you make that product available through the legal means? All this, I would have to go back to this modular refinery company. We make these things so complicated that this is the result you get. I mean, it's different from what happened in Jesse in Delta State in 1998. You know, hundreds got bumped in that one, and every other week there are tanker accidents all over the country. Well, we can't continue like this.
We can't really. Thank you so much, Bayo. We thank you so much for being part of this program this morning. Tomorrow is going to be another day. We're just beginning the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be back in a moment with the program proper. Stay with us.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve their sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
When times are tough, we know that as a mother, one thing you should never compromise on is your family's oral health, because they deserve the best. Oral-B, all-round protection. Its great value, it protects your mouth from harmful bacteria and also protects you against tooth holes and gum problems which can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B for healthier, stronger teeth in just 1 week.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within, and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA. Candidates who are interested in gaining admission into NTA Television College JOS for the 2021-2022 two-year National Innovation Diploma Program are to apply for admission through the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM. The courses available for application include film and television production, broadcast journalism, and television engineering technology. Such candidates must have a minimum of 5 O-level credits in relevant subjects including English language and mathematics. For more information, please contact NTA Television College, JOS, or the marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. Registrar, Announcer.
It's scary, isn't it? Putting yourself out there. Ignoring the voices telling you you can't. We used step aside, or will you go for it? After all, what's the worst that could happen? So, keep trying. Don't stop. Believe in yourself and go for it. Aladana, available in many variants to nourish you every step of the way.
As a prompt for our conversation, which is on Annex 2023 petition, rather election project plan, there is a background report put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
To some, 9 months could still be far away, but to others, 2023 general election is just around the corner. Parties are yet to decide whom their flag bearers would be out of the lot already showing interest. For the people, they only wish for the best person to effect change and reverse the fortunes of the country from the current challenges. 9 months to the 2023 polls, the electoral umpire is already dotting its I's and crossing its T's on how best to ensure the credibility of the ballots. Some challenges, especially those bordering on security, are already making some key players concerned about the fate of the fast approaching elections. Last week, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), while reeling out the 2023 election project plan, announced plans to spend 305 billion naira for the polls. The 9-chapter election project plan, which dwells on risk management, budget administration and resources deployment, indicates that 239.2 billion naira, which constitutes 78.44% of total budget, would be spent on 10 critical items, which includes ballot papers, operational vehicles, ballot boxes, allowances of ad hoc workers, printing of result sheets, logistics and procurement of accreditation devices, aside the 27.1 billion naira set aside by the Commission for possible runoff elections, including the one for the presidential polls. The INEC chairman has already emphasized that no amount of security challenges would stop the conduct of the 2023 general election, as the Commission would continue to engage with the security agencies to ensure the safety of the personnel and materials, accredited observers, the media, and above all, the voters. The National Security Advisor also pledged the commitment of security agencies to protect lives and property at the polls, aside about 1 million electoral officials, both regular and ad hoc staff, that will be deployed to 176,846 polling units in 8,809 wards and 774 local government areas in the country. Now, what more does the 2023 election project plan contain? How much trust can the people have in the electoral process and system? Are the key players really prepared for the smooth conduct of the polls, and what loopholes are yet to be plugged? These are some questions guests already seated in the studio will provide answers to shortly.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, our talking point this morning is next 2023 election petition. Election. Where's this petition coming in from?
It's anticipatory.
Election project plan, that is. And joining us in the studio to discuss the topic is Nick Dezan, former Director, Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining the conversation here in the studio is Ene Obi. She is the Country Director, Action Aid. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Ene.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, and also here with us on the studios to discuss the subject matter is Alhaji Yabagi Yusuf Sani, as National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, and is also the National Chairman of the Action Democratic Party, ADP. He was the presidential candidate in 2019. Pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's begin the conversation by taking advantage of the years of experience of Mr. Nick Dazang, who was a director of voter education and publicity at INEC and also admin secretary in the FCT. Nick Dazang, what is the whole idea of the election project plan for 2023? Is it a public document, or as it were, a private document solely for INEC to execute the 2023 elections?
Well, let me start by saying that the only thing INEC does in secret or allows to be done in secret is the very act of your casting your vote during the conduct of elections. All INEC does is in the public domain. And the essence is to be transparent and to inspire confidence of Nigerians and all stakeholders. And the project plan draws, strength and inspiration from the strategic plan that was drawn up last year. And it also draws from the review of the 2019 general elections. It draws from the conduct of the elections, last year, particularly the Edo and Ondo governorship elections and several by-elections, that were conducted. And it also draws from the recommendations of the review of the 2019 general elections. And it also looked at the challenges, that were faced in the conduct of the 2019 general elections, and the challenges also and threats that were confronted in the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. Now, you recall that in 2019, because INEC didn't get funding in good time, its budget was not appropriated in time, it affected its logistics. And we had so many parties on the ballot to the extent that printing the ballots and other sensitive materials was a logistics nightmare. And so, in addition to that, we also had other threats like COVID-19, under which we conducted the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And we have seen also heightened insecurity in the country. These are threats to the conduct of the elections. And we also have other threats in terms of attacks in the conduct of 2019 general elections and other elections to the INEC website, databases, servers. And then we've also had this trend of fake news, misinformation, vote buying and trading. And this became particularly rampant during the conduct of the FCT governorship election, council elections, to the extent that Yaga Africa and CDD, reported through its observers that it was not only rampant, it was done openly. So these challenges are addressed by the project plan. And the project plan, drawing from all this, is an articulation of the roles and activities to be, carried out by INEC and other stakeholders to deliver, elections that are seamless in 2023. And the idea is, to identify certain levels of activities. And the project plan has identified 231 of such high-level, activities to be conducted, during this period. And, as said earlier on, that it also draws from the implementation program. And if you look at the implementation program, you will see that certain activities were articulated across the 3 electoral cycles. And at each quarter of each of the cycles, activities are identified. The persons who are to carry them out are identified. and so on and so forth. So the project plan provides us with that template as to how we are going to conduct the elections on the part of INEC and also stakeholders. And it also emphasizes the need for INEC not only to be transparent, to be cost effective, to be professional, and to carry stakeholders as much as possible. I've said here several times that any time we work in Nigeria with concert, with determination, you know, with synergy, we excel. And elections are so serious matters that cannot be left for INEC alone. The INEC has long realized this, you know, and since, if you look at the strategic plans, I think this is the fifth one. It started with the 2003 to 2007 electoral cycle under the watch of Dr. Abel Gubadia. And these plans, you know, they are cognizant of the fact that elections are such huge and massive projects that you cannot conduct, you know, or carry out haphazardly in a random or serendipitous manner. It must be planned and in a sustained manner with people given roles to play. And you also notice that these plans, these strategic plans that INEC has put in place have coincided with certain things, one of which is the introduction of technology to the electoral process, which began also.
Yeah, you know, Nick, we're going to have to pause you. You've given us and our viewers background to the election project plan. It's incisive, but of course there are a number of matters arising, even from what you have said as well as the details that have been provided. Let's bring in now NLB, Country Director of Action Aid. What's your take on this election project plan for 2023? Deja vu, or we are having a blueprint that could deliver free, fair and credible elections?
First, we want to say that it is good to plan. It's a great thing to plan, but carrying out to implementation, I think that's the reality that is on ground. I'm happy that INEC, you know, we congratulated them, and I want to say a big thank you to the media. Thank you to NTA. Thank you to all members, you know, all the journalists that have been doing fantastic work in following up. Because it's not only stopping there, and you are tracking it now. That's what you have started doing, and we hope to continue to track. I think the issue of transparency and accountability, being open in terms of communication, is helping a great deal. It's helped us, you know, from the last year. I can see there was a bombardment of several meetings with stakeholders, you know, in terms of what is your plan, what are you going to do about what is on ground, and I think this is part of it. At that launch, it's okay to have the strategic plan. There was a strategic plan from 2017 to 2021. And when I look at the recommendations, because one of the good things that they also did with the plan is to review the past plans, to see what are the confusions, what are the challenges, and then going to the, you know, the plan towards, that's the strategic plan, and then the towards 2023 elections. When you look at them, you might have very similar recommendations. There were about, 12 recommendations or so, you know, from the earlier plan, which ended in 2021. And when you look at the recommendations, it seems to be dovetailing in a lot of ways into the 2022-2026 strategic plan, which they have brought out the implementation, this election plan, monitoring plan from. Now that we're here, the implementation, if you remember in the struggle for the Electoral Act, there was a lot of struggle. Sign the Electoral Act. If you see us at the civil society environment, I'm the convener of civil society situation room on elections. And so these are basic things that we look at. These are things that we are following up on. And we called, we were worried because it was getting too late again. And we said, if the president did not sign, first I commend the president for eventually signing, though that was the 7th time. But I commend him for signing it because, again, there were so many things. There was a lot of politicking, thanks to the National Assembly too. There was a lot of in-work there, and we could see, I can see a bit of sabotage in the sense that some people didn't want it signed, other people wanted it signed, and so many things were being thrown in. Each time the bill went back and forth and all. But eventually it was signed. And I say kudos, congratulations to Nigerians. The implementation is what we are watching now. We look at one of the recommendations from the past plan was the issue of, the procurement, Public Procurement Act. That is a lot of hurdle for INEC in terms of, planning and the pursuit of plans, because what Nick raised earlier about the production of the materials going into the elections, there will be delays again. Those things were some of the challenges that were raised by the plan. One thing that I liked with the plan is that it did the review of the past and it's telling you we are going forward now. What is it that we can put in place? When we said the delay of the signing of the bill, delayed it for 1 week, we went out en masse. And eventually that 1 week delay led to the 1 week postponement, a shift in the elections, meaning that if we didn't get it then, it would have been so much more. And the same thing is happening all over. Have they given them the funding? Implementation attracts funding. Have they released the funding for the year? Or will that lead to some other issues?
Yeah, these are issues we'll keep talking to as we continue the conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you so much, NOB, for that opening slot. Let's hear from Yaba Gisani, National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, and National Chairman of Action Democratic Party. As a politician, how would you differentiate, if I may use this word, differentiate 2019, election project plan and 2023 election project plan?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate INEC and, of course, congratulate Nigerians that we're lucky to have the team that we have, managing the affairs of the elections in this country today, headed by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, a very fine gentleman, committed, focused, organized, and I think that shows that 2023 is going to be remarkably different in terms of successes from 2019, even though 2019 was also conducted under his watch. But the point I'm trying to make now is that they have the benefit of the experience of 2019, which has been dovetailed into 2023 plan, and I believe, like the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and INEC has adequately, given enough time, energy to ensure that they plan well, so that we'll succeed. End of the day, the issues here, it's about the most important, operations, that is activities in the country, because elections are about recruitment of leadership, and the governance, which today we are battling with, has to do with how you recruit your leadership. So that is why no matter the amount of time and the resources that you give to this activity, believe you me, it's not too much, because end of the day, it is what matters, for this country. That's how this country will either make it, for God forbid, or we mad. But I'm sure we're going to make it. So 2023 election project plan, it's a good piece of document. It's of course, if you look at the grand norm, which is the constitution of this country, it has given INEC, that responsibility, the mandate to organize, implement, plans. You look at the section 15, part 1 of the third schedule of 1999 Constitution, and also the section 2 of the just signed electoral, 22 electoral law. It gives INEC that responsibility. So they entirely are the ones responsible for the success of the elections that we are going to have in this country. Our worries in IPAC is the fact that this is a new electoral bill, electoral law, sorry, that we are going to implement. And we believe that, unlike INEC, in the past, when they are coming out with such an important, document, plan, they always carry us along, before the final document is prepared. But in this case, I don't know what happened. Political parties were not taken into confidence, were not, consulted on the plan itself, how it's going to be implemented, especially as it regards the timing, the time frame, because time is very, very crucial. And when you are planning for elections, you must bear in mind, which INEC knows, and that's why they have been taking us, into confidence in the past. Like I said, you are planning it for the political parties, because we are the one that really the Constitution has given that power to present candidates, to in fact conduct the elections are conducted for political parties. So, but I know this INEC, I know that there will be room for us to engage further to maybe present our views, because there are serious areas of concern, as far as political parties are concerned. For instance, the issue of when the primaries are going to start and when they are going to end. We know that the Constitution allows, us 180 days before the elections, to conclude all, activities leading to that election. But in this, time frame that the schedule that INEC has brought out, it's, they have given about 10 months, and we believe that, given the fact that the dynamics and then the goings on in the polity, and the fact that we need to give time for political parties who themselves are just coming into this new electoral law, to perhaps make mistakes and correct them before the elections itself. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a need for the political parties through IPAC and INEC to sit down again and take a look at the timing. The plan is fantastic, believe me. They invested so much time and energy and to articulate that plan. And we welcome the plan. We are for it. We are on the same page with them. But we are talking about implementation. That's the timeline for the implementation, okay, especially primaries before the elections, election itself.
Okay, yeah, but let me just cut in here a little bit, and then let's exhaust some of these concerns you're talking about. You only mentioned one, talking about the primaries and the time for the primaries. What other concerns are there for the political parties as far as the EPP is concerned?
Well, you see, the other concern is actually not within the purview of INEC. That is the big elephant in the room, which is the judiciary. What his plan was, if at the end of the day somebody will go to court and then make a nonsense of all these things that we have done, like we have seen in the past, to the extent that some governors are today called Supreme Court governors. So I think we should have the judiciary to come, really to step up to the plate and ensure that when these things are done, at the end of the day, somebody somewhere does not go to procure judgment that will make a nonsense of everything that we are doing, in order to ensure that this country gets its bearing in terms of becoming the leader which God has given us position, to be. So judiciary, the kind of laws, the kind of judgments that have been given in the past does not in any way give one the confidence that all these good things that we have done, all the energy, all the resources, all the time we have spent, care is not taken, end of the day, it will come to naught. So this is another area that I want, and like I said, it's not within the purview of INEC and the security agencies also, because we don't want a situation where they be compromised in the process of getting implementation process itself. That's what NA was talking about. It's not the planning, in itself alone, but there are other issues, there are other key stakeholders, that must also step up to the plate and ensure that they imbibe that nationalist, orientation and belief that to believe in this country, to believe that they owe it to this country to be above board. These are very important factors. INEC cannot do much about that, but we believe that as we continue to dialogue and then as we approach 2023, some of these things will have be put in proper perspective. So there are other issues that we'll talk about as we go along.
All right. Thank you very much, Alhaji Yabagi. Let's bring in again Nick Dazan. Nick, again, help our viewers understand the cost elements in the election project plan. Our backgrounder stated that INEC says it's going to spend some 305 billion naira on the elections next year. And of that amount, about 27 billion has been set aside for possible runoff. Elections are pretty costly. But when you look at some of these cost elements, you're wondering, is this going to be part of a supplementary budget to be sent to the National Assembly? Or is it already INEC's budget from which this is being drawn? What is INEC already executing its own budget for next year's election? What is the context of these numbers at this time?
Well, the context is that, first of all, INEC spends a lot, you know, on staff, ad hoc and permanent, during the conduct of elections. Recall that before now we had nearly 120,000 polling units. And on election day, you have not less than 4 ad hoc staff manning each of these polling units. Then you also have at least 2 security men or policemen manning each of these polling units. Now with the expansion of voter access to polling units, that is when more polling units were created, you know, to decongest the former polling units, we now have a larger number of polling units. And that means that you will now have more staff, ad hoc, permanent security to pay, and you have to you pay them allowances for their transportation, for their feeding, and so on. And by the same token, you also pay the security agents. That is number one. And if you look at the number we are talking about ad hoc staff in millions, you know, and also the security, the policemen alone that are going to man the polling units are also 500,000. So when you look at, when we conduct elections, we are dealing with like almost 2 million people, you know, conducting the elections, and you have to pay them. That's number one. Number two, you have to print the sensitive materials and the non-sensitive materials. And because we have issue of trust, in other jurisdictions, you just, in Europe, you just use plain paper and indicate your party of choice or candidate of choice, and you slot it into the box. But here there are issues of concern to the extent that these sensitive materials are printed at the level of the currency, the naira that you know. You have to put security features, you have to put watermarks, and then you know you now to print them abroad. You have to also transport them back and then distribute them, and then even in the course of distribution, the logistics involved is some other thing. So all these are costs, and then don't forget that most of these things are dollarized. The printing of the sensitive materials are done in hard currency, and the naira continues to plummet precipitously against the dollar. You know, in 2015, the naira was exchanging at less than 200, and now it is exchanging at 400 plus, you know, at the current exchange rate. So that adds to the cost. So going forward, and as our elections improve and issues of trust come in, I'm sure the cost of elections will go down. Secondly, I've been an advocate of the fact that we have a national security printing and minting company in Nigeria. Instead of outsourcing the printing of materials, you know, to other printing presses abroad and empowering those people there, all we need to do is to put the security printing and minting company in the finest fettle. Put it, give it the state-of-the-art equipment that can produce these materials. And by the time you do that, the cost will go down because you are paying in naira, not in dollars. Secondly, you will be empowering the security printing and minting company. You will also be, you know, facilitating the employment of Nigerians in that company. So I believe that by and by, when we do the needful and we address some of these concerns and our elections get better and less rancorous, and the preeminent stakeholders, the political parties, do the needful. Because he said a number of things that, you know, I think the ball is really in the court of the political parties. Most of these cases that result in adjudication or arbitration by the courts, with due respect to him, are caused by the political parties. They foist candidates. They don't respect even their constitutions and manifestos. And because of that, at the end of the day, people go to court, and then the courts order INEC to conduct elections, and at which costs? It takes not less than 1.5 to 2 billion naira to conduct a governorship election in Nigeria. And by the time you now order 3-4 governorship elections to be conducted on the part of INEC alone, you can imagine how much is going to be expended. Not to talk of other stakeholders, like even the politicians themselves, civil society, media, all people involved in elections now have to spend the kind of money they spent earlier on, you know, to observe the conduct of the elections. So the political parties need to do the needful. And I'm surprised that he is saying that, is also suggesting that INEC does not engage with them, particularly in respect of this project, because I was part of it. I was part of the strategic plan 2022 to 2026 was designed when I was there. I was a member of that committee, incidentally, and I was also a member of the committee that drafted the project plan. And we tried as much as possible, you know, to engage with all stakeholders to make sure that we collected their inputs. And that explains why, even during the presentation, political parties, members of civil society, the media, all stakeholders were invited to the presentation. And it has been like that, you know, right from the beginning of time. From 2003, you know, when we started this process of planning, we had always engaged with stakeholders. And we had consciously and deliberately increased, or rather INEC has consciously and increased its frequency of engagement, particularly with political parties. And I'm aware that after the break, the summer break, INEC again will re-engage with, you know, the political parties and other stakeholders. And I'm sure that these issues, you know, will arise and they will be debated, they will be discussed. But, you know, what I'm trying to say is that there has always been this overarching concern on the part of the Commission to engage with stakeholders, because the INEC has realized that it cannot successfully conduct any election on its own. It must engage with others. It must let, you know, with stakeholders.
Nick, thanks again for your explanation. One other aspect that is left untouched, maybe the other guests may speak to this. I was talking about the amount that INEC says is going to spend. You provided a justification by explaining how INEC spends money, which is fine. But is INEC saying that it will need 305 billion naira to conduct the election, and therefore have a supplementary budget, or we already have the amount that we are going to, that has been voted for us, of this amount, this is what we are going to spend on the conduct of elections? Because, I mean, other than elections, INEC also has other activities. So that's what I'm not quite clear about. And then you have a sense of why these numbers are the way they are. Are they presenting them now as a prelude to a supplementary bill, or I don't know, supplementary appropriation bill, or what?
I wouldn't tell directly. I think INEC will have to answer that question. But I can say that the planning has been on. And so the Act provides that the money for the running of the election be released 12 months, you know, to the election. And as at the time that the Act was passed, I think 1 month down the line, the money had not been released. I don't know now if they have gotten. INEC did not come out to tell us that the money has been released. But we are monitoring that as well. And the government needs to take responsibility. The government of Nigeria is not only because implementation is everything. And that's why we are calling on all stakeholders. calling on Nigerians. It's not only the key stakeholders that we're mentioning, all Nigerians that put their hands on deck. Because one of the things that it's very, very apparent now is voter apathy. Voter apathy is major in terms of those who are coming out to vote. That showed up in the 2019 elections, where we have about 84.5 million voters, and then only about 27 voted in the general election. And that means 50-something did not vote at all. And that is our major concern. What are the concerns about voter education? Have they started voter education process? They are still now going through the plans that we're talking about. But voter education ought to have started, because the timeline for you to stop registration and transferring of your voting in order to meet up with the permanent voters card is also, you know, we are almost a couple of months to the closure of that scenario. So if you have not registered now with the continuous voter registration that is going on, if you have not registered, if you have not done it, in the next few months, it's going to close. And you are not starting voter education. You are not talking to Nigerians about it. And I think these are areas that we need to focus on. So the monetary aspect will allow INEC to take the plans to the market. You know, to take them for the implementation of the plans. But if they don't have the money, can they meet up with that? Because we had crisis when, during Anambra election, you know, it was a lot in terms of voter education. INEC could not go out into because of the nature of the election then. But we are now here, and we are missing the civic education that needs to accompany, because we have a lot of Nigerians who have gone to above 18 since the last election. And so how do we mobilize them? People, issues of trust is there. They don't have confidence in the system. There's a lot of unemployment, which is addressing issues of, you know, a lot of people feel their voters don't count. But we can say now that voting will count. If you dare to go, because the beavers is constructed to limit issues of fraud in elections. And if we are able to, except if you don't go to the voting, if you don't go to the polling unit, we also have the crisis of populating and depopulating the congested polling units to repopulate those polling units. Because in the last election, an example is the FCT election, where sometimes you have 3 people who are in one polling unit. And the beauty of the beavers is that you can't move from one polling unit to go and vote in the other, because those 3 can only vote where they are. And so the issue of having 5,000 in this polling unit, and next to it you have 1 person, you know, or 3 people in the polling unit, and you have the 4 officials really seated there. I think these are issues that we need to look at. Since other stakeholders are involved, the security is involved. It's not only INEC. Are they doing their bit? Do they have funding implications that they can also do their bit? And if we have the party, you know, the political parties, what they are doing, I think in all of it, what we are saying with this election, we need everybody to stand up right for Nigeria. Okay. We need everybody to be accountable for their role, that you have a role, not only INEC, but if INEC needs to carry out its duties, they are employed to do the job. They need funding to be able to implement. For the civil society, we will monitor. But you monitor what is on ground. If you are monitoring INEC and INEC tells you, but I don't have money to execute, money has not been given to me, where do we go to? So let them be given what they need to do, and so that every department in INEC is ready for the election, and then we need to move on from there.
Okay, thank you, NLB. It's natural that one will feel that the INEC by now should have gone far in trying to, you know, actualize some of these plans, given the fact that we have some few months ahead. But nonetheless, let's take a cue from what Ene said, Alaji Abagi. Let's hear from you. Voter education is one of the concerns of Nigerians and of concerns of civil society organizations, the political parties and the rest of them. But listening to the INEC chairman last week when he was, you know, presenting this EPP, one could see and could hear how the concern is from him and from INEC about, you know, general participation in the success of this election. Talking about voter education generally is not the sole responsibility of INEC. Of course, we are doing our bit as Ines said, and of course that's one of our major roles here. Political parties have a great role to play. Voter education is one of the concerns. What would you say about this?
Well, thank you very much, but let me quickly make a correction of impression that Nick was trying to give, that I said INEC is not consulting sufficiently with us. No, I didn't say so. At every point of the process, INEC calls us either sometimes individually, collectively, for us to share, experiences and see how best this thing can be done. The point I was trying to make is that in the final analysis, when this document was prepared finally and presented to the public, normally INEC will call us and say, this is what we are going to present. What do you think as stakeholders in this case? For instance, the chairman himself, I'm talking about Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, last week or so, announced that parties are required to submit the registers of their members, both in soft copy and hard copy, 30 days to the election, to the primaries. So today, not all parties really, I don't know which party really has its registers, ready, in hard copy and soft copy. Some parties are not even technologically enabled, in terms of producing these copies.
But that should be the business of the parties, not that of INEC.
It is.
If party managers did their job properly, why should that be an issue?
No. Registration of members like INEC also, in their own voter registration, it's a continuous exercise. But when you now give a time limit that you must submit this, although it didn't say you must submit this number of members before you can qualify to conduct your primaries. But the point we are making is that whatever is worth doing well. We believe, given also the fact that the elections in Osun and Ekiti is coming, ending by July or so, we feel that we never know what may come out from those elections. So the timeline given by INEC that by June 5th or so, that primaries should be conducted, should be concluded, all activities it's what we are saying, that perhaps, we could again sit down together and look at it and see how do we ensure that these things are done properly, that people are not, put in a straitjacket kind of thing and then you make mistakes. That's all I'm trying to say. INEC has been very, very, cooperative in terms of getting us to be on the same page whenever things are done like this. But this has to do with our primaries, which means if care is not taken and you make mistakes, your candidates may be exposed to some unnecessary legal issues that we may not be, because this electoral law is being tested for the first time. This is the first outing, of INEC on this new electoral law that we have. That's why we're asking that, since we have 6 months, according to the Constitution, to conclude all the processes, we can allow some room for parties to get themselves ready properly, so that we can achieve what we want to achieve. Then coming to voter education and civic responsibility of individuals. Yes, if you look at the mandate of INEC, the Constitution says INEC should embark on this exercise, including education of people on sound electoral processes and things like that. The Constitution gives that to INEC. Parties, of course, are doing their own. IPAC, in particular, we normally organize road shows and things like that before every elections. We try to see how we can sensitize Nigerians, mobilize Nigerians, so that we will achieve, participation. That is, people coming out to vote. This voter apathy thing, will be reduced. But remember also that parties are not funded by any agency, anybody except the parties themselves. So this is also, and I keep saying, I don't know of any agency created by the Constitution that is not funded by the government. And I don't know why it has become an exception in the most important, business of the, on the land, that the government will say, no, we're not going to fund you. Go and do it. And then here again, you are saying that you don't want money bags to hijack the process. You don't want to monetize the process. And you have left the parties to their own fate. So these are issues that I think we must interrogate as we go on, so that we can get it right and get it right. Even in America, electioneering processes, parties are funded, one way or the other. So it's not anything that it's not like a favor that you are doing to the political parties. So we are asking the government to take a second look, National Assembly, to see that, because if they say who pays the piper, dictates the tone. If you leave the parties to the the vagaries of those who have loads of money, then you have to live with whatever the outcome is. So I agree that I commend INEC, everybody does, because it's a different scenario we are going to have in terms of the involvement of electronic systems, of managing the process, and in terms of when you look at even the mindset. I'm talking about the orientation and the demonstrated commitment of the personnel. In INEC, believe you me, there's no way you will not have confidence to believe that end of the day the process will be a successful one.
Yeah, but I'm not cutting you short. But my concern, and of course concern of Nigerians here, is the issue of voter apathy. No organization, I would say, requires the votes must like the political parties, because they are the ones that try to get people to vote for them, and then with that they count the numbers, and there they go. And it coordinates this and then see to it that their votes count. But only when they vote is when the votes are going to count. Now, voter education is one primary thing here. Until the apathy is gotten rid of, we cannot really be sure of the fact that we would get the votes we require as political parties. All right, that's what we are saying. And
exactly.
How far?
I'm on the same page with you. But the point I'm trying to make is that if we understand the fact that voter education is very important, to also give the Nigerians, their civic responsibilities, rights as far as elections are concerned, then why not make some funds available to parties, particularly to engage in that exercise? This is so important. And since it's only political parties who can reach, far and wide, deep into the every corner of this country to mobilize people, why don't you do that? As a matter of policy, as a government, that we are giving you these funds and this is what we want to use it for. And then you monitor. You can go back and check how the money was expended, like you do with all other agencies of government. So you have...
I don't know. Alaji, let's clarify this point. There was a time when political parties were funded. And then we started having portfolio political parties, where the office of the political party will be in the boys' quarter of the chairman, and people were formed political parties simply to access government funding, and thereafter they closed shop until the next cycle of election. And after a while, of course, this was deleted to say, go fend for yourselves. And if you have members, as we had in the First Republic, if you have members and they pay subscription fees, let's give a plain example. Assuming a political party A brags that it has 10 million members. 10 million members paying 1,000 naira each. Calculate what that would be in the coffers of the political party. You're talking about, Alad, you're talking about voter education and the need, for the government to fund political parties. But voter education is a multi-stakeholder business. Civil society is available, INEC itself is there. Even the government itself is also involved through the Federal Ministry of Information at the national level. But political parties are the beneficiaries of the votes once the votes get harvested. So why would political parties use? It is not everything every time you come on television by way of advertising or using billboards. There are all kinds of fora that political parties interact with their members and others. They could utilize that. And I think that that's the point that my colleague was talking about. And then you also said something about the new Electoral Act being the first time it is going to be tested. We're not having, so to speak, a brand new Electoral Act. But we've conducted elections under the basis of previous Electoral Act, and the longest reigning was the 2010 Electoral Act, which has now been repealed and then reenacted as the 2022 Electoral Act. It doesn't require any magic. There are issues there to be sorted out. If INEC says political parties bring your registers of members before you conduct your primaries, I think that's a legitimate requirement.
I think that INEC is insisting on that because you cannot have credible primaries without a credible register. INEC long realized this, when we were using manual registers that were, subject to padding. And that was why, we went electronic and improved on that register. And by the same token, I think the political parties owe it to Nigerians, as the preeminent stakeholder in the process, to show example. And I think it doesn't make sense to canvass for timelines that, you know, are informed and undergirded by the law to be altered. You know, these timelines that INEC gives are informed by the same Electoral Act 2022 and the Constitution. And so for you to now insist that INEC should now, you know, reverse or make allowance for...
We're not saying that you violate the Constitution. The Constitution says 180
No, but because that is what it will amount to. You know, because these timelines, the timetable and schedule of activities, yes, you know, that was issued by the Commission a day after the Electoral Act 2022 was, you know, enacted, was predicated on the Constitution and the Electoral Act.
Yeah.
And so to now subject, you know, it's
and
not,
a desire, I heard at the time, which was reasonable, to say, look, whatever litigation would arise from your primaries, cantankerous litigation,
can now be sorted out.
Will be sorted out before voting, and then INEC is in a position to then prepare its final documents, namely a ballot paper, not on the eve of the election. You are being told to include a political party or otherwise. I thought.
The idea is, you know, for even the political parties to conduct their primaries and for the candidates to swear to affidavits that the particulars that they submitted are valid, so that we run away from this issue of people going to court after the elections have been conducted, and then, you know, we now have court-ordered elections. So I think what the law seeks to do is to sanitize the system and also to give INEC that latitude to procure the materials, you know, and services for the conduct of the elections. And it takes 3 months for you to procure, you know, based on the Procurement Act 2007.
Nick Desmond, we will talk about the procurements and, of course, the sensitive materials and the rest of them when we come back from the break. We have a little more issues to discuss on EPP. There are so many issues we haven't really touched, but it seems Nick Yawbagi is itching there to say something, but all the same, just keep your, you know, keep it mute for a while. We'll be back in a moment with more on Good Morning Nigeria. Stay with us.
I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen.
Rugged, yes, school. I don't know for you.
It's called Oja Village. We know happy at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders too. We are trying.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I talk with that now.
I'm a fire, no be peace, don't stop, you know.
Powered by Glow.
Did you know that a quarter of the world's deaths from malaria is in Nigeria? And the reason being a mosquito that spreads malaria, a disease that puts everyone's life in distress. We believe that protection and prevention is the best cure in the fight to end malaria. Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our #1 choice.
Knock, knock, knock. Have you had breakfast this morning? I'm talking about a Kellogg's breakfast. It's fortified with the essential vitamins and minerals so you can stay active and alert. Yummy. So tasty, so nutritious.
Do you run a breast or cervical cancer service? Are you a private or public laboratory, clinic or hospital that offer any of breast imaging, cervical cancer screening, HPV vaccination, or other breast or cervical cancer services? Is your service a primary, secondary, or tertiary center located in any part of Nigeria, no matter how remotely located it is? If yes to any of these questions, then subscribe to the OCI Foundation's Save a Breast app and become accessible and visible to millions of Nigerians. It is all for free. To subscribe, just type the Save a Breast application form on Google or go to the OCI Foundation's page on www.ocifoundation.org and search for Save a Breast application form. Complete the form and submit, and let millions of Nigerians patronize you, all for free. Become part of the OCI Foundation's quest to tackle breast and cervical cancers in Nigeria. And join us as we rise by lifting others.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're discussing INEC's 2023 election project plan this morning with Nick Design, former Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and of course NAOB, Country Director Action Aid, and Yaba Yusuf Sani, National Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, and National Chairman of the Action Democratic Party, who was also its presidential candidate in 2019. Gentlemen and lady, we may be running against time now because there are issues we need to really touch, and it seems time may not be on us. I want to be a little bit precise here in trying to, respond to these issues. We were discussing the issue of voter education at the beginning, before the break really, and let's move on a little bit to some concerns by Nigerians now, talking about, issues of functionality of devices, and of course prompt commencement of polls, and indeed improved logistics in this regard. These are issues and concerns by Nigerians in trying to see to it that when addressed, it will go a long way in ensuring that the EPP succeeds, and of course elections become really credible and inclusive.
Okay, I think for the issues of logistics, I think that is one thing that INEC has been trying to deal with, and they were very, very open about it in terms of what are they meeting at the front level, on the front line. We had a lot of concerns during the Anambra election because of the situation on ground. Anambra was a bit hot. I would say that we had issues where people down-tooled that morning. Even the vehicles that they had paid for, say, I cannot. Somebody withdrawing hundreds of vehicles on the morning of the election. It left INEC stranded. But as long, they need to be open, they tried, if they could conduct election, and they did conduct in Anambra, I believe that they can conduct elections in every aspect. But the logistics, they've been open in terms of how do you cope with working with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, with at the state level and at the different levels to cover. This is no longer state. We still have by-elections that are coming. Yeah. Ekiti is right around the corner. And we have, Oshun as well. We want to see a test case where there is improvement in every stage, if we move from one state to the other. When we went to Anambra State, the beavers, that's a biometric and verification, biometric verification and accreditation system, beavers, was very, in the general, in the big election itself, there was some malfunctioning because many of those who were trained down-tooled that morning. But once we called INEC, the technical people who were supposed to monitor at the office level were released to the field. Things changed a bit. In the by-election in Ihiala, beavers was working perfectly. And beavers that we're talking about, it works perfectly in Ghana and everywhere. So we need to look at the issue of technology. But on the area of logistics, they can do better. But we have to work with the Nigeria Labour Congress to be able to work with even the National Union of Road Transport Workers, the drivers themselves, because that system, there is a build-up. And Action Aid is trying to see what they can do to support, I think in the Oshun election, to look at, logistics as a special project to see what happens. And so
is there, and sorry to interject, still riding on what Nadabo asked, is there a sense in which INEC is too over-centralized? Because you would expect that as you have recs, recs ought to, I don't know how the system works, ought to be in a position to handle some of these aspects, whether of logistics or otherwise. Yes, you have an arrangement with NOTU, that's National Union of Road Transport Workers, and so on and so forth. What then is the responsibility of the state recs? In terms of cascading down, is it only the plans you have at the national level that they will be dealing with?
No, there are plans at the, I think,
sorry to cut you short. I think the way ANEC engages with the NURTW and NATO is that at the headquarters level, there's a memorandum of understanding as to how to relate and also the requirements of the commission. And the recs in the states are allowed also to engage with the Union of Road Transport Workers and transport owners at the level of the states. So it's decentralized to a large extent, even though the funding comes, from the headquarters. But the relationship, the interface is usually between the resident electoral commissioners, the administrative secretaries, with members of the National Union of Road Transport Workers at that level. But the leadership of the two, that is AURTW and NATO, also cascade their orders based on the understanding that the commission
MOU
has
you have at the national level.
Yes.
The other point,
Nick, I think one of the things that we need to look at is to remove the bureaucracies.
Yes.
Because there are some times that before the money reaches the drivers, there are issues at that point. And so we need to do that. On the civic education, I want to bring us back to the fact that we have the National Orientation Agency. That's the arm of government that is in charge of civic education. But how do we bring them in? Because they have representation. They have political scientists in all of the 774 local government areas. How do we make use of them? They have these big vehicles, which they are now using, which I think is a comeback, for the Ministry of Information. Because when we were young, you have these giant trucks that they roll about. Whatever message the government of Nigeria wants to take to a remote area, they were able to take it. What is happening to them now? We need them for this election. It's very important.
All that collapse.
It's important if the government wants citizens to get it right, because sometimes we feel that the government don't want citizens to get it right. And we are talking of the future of Nigerians. We are talking of the future of Nigeria. And all hands needs to be on deck, because INEC is created to say they want to be the best. That's your vision. You want to be the best electoral management body in the world, but you are in Nigeria, and the progress of managing the elections in every state. So when we get to Okiti and we are monitoring, we want to see the systems work. We want the next level. We want the political parties, and that aspect of registration that we're talking about. How can you have members and you don't have their register? It means you don't have members. If you have members, they ought to have been registered. We have many young people who are graduates of computer education. So you can employ them to document. The world has gone to high tech. If we don't have registration now, it is the political parties that will tell how many people did you register for that state? How many is the voting population? And so we want to see the deepening of democracy from even the voting process as they conduct the primaries.
I don't think we should be so much bothered about registration of members in political parties now, because it's almost too late for us to be doing that.
I'm asking for the register. Where is the register? We need to have
the political party should really produce that for INEC, and then so that INEC can really work with it. But it's always been said that INEC is after, delivering free, fair, credible, transparent, and this time around, inclusive election. And of course, the inclusiveness is what is really counts. And I want you to come in at this juncture. I don't know how the EPP should have addressed that, because talking about people with disabilities now, and especially at voting units and polling units, and of course the issue of them having this voting seamlessly. I don't know how what is there in the EPP, all right, in order to see to it that these class of Nigerians it's excluded, and of course are being given, the appropriate environment for them to really cast their vote seamlessly?
I think, like we said, there was a law on ground before the Electoral Act was passed. And so INEC has been trying in terms of gathering data on people with disability. And what they're trying to do is looking at the issue of RAM, looking at, looking at the different level of disability and making provisions for it. In the past elections, down to the FCT elections, we have not seen quite an improvement because of magnifiers for those with albinism, and then those who are the people with disability that are on the ground, the cubicle is too high for them. Yeah. And so we have taken that feedback to INEC, because when you monitor from the civil society situation room, each time we do a monitoring of election, we submit our total report, and we printed report to INEC to see what you can do, what can you improve upon. And so INEC has listened to that, because those who are lower that cannot come up, it meant that they needed somebody to help them to vote. It means that person, that secrecy of the ballot cannot be there. But we see improvement. We see improvement for those who, at least the new voting cubicle is more private than the others, but we can do a lot better. The priority line that has been created for people with disability, the elderly and nursing mothers is an improvement. And I think if they keep to that, but they need to pay attention, because the population of people with disability in a national election is quite high. For the state, we want to see more improvement, as we go to Ekiti and Osun as well. For the security, I think the security environment, security agencies, we had a lot of improvement. It's a lot of improvement again. But when you have the security people who are supposed to monitor the issue of vote buying, and they are seeing it and it's happening, and they are not, I think the police can be inducted enough to be able to enhance the cutting down fraud in an election, corruption on elections. And so, there is a lot. And then women's issues, women inclusion.
You're talking about see and buy.
See and buy. The way it's happening now, you can't just go, you can't follow people like the way they used to follow to the polling station.
This vote buying and trading is seriously concerning, in the sense that it can alter, it affects the integrity of the election, and it can also influence the outcome of an election.
Yes. But I'm sorry, Nick. Yes. I know that we can open up that perspective and probably not wrap up today. Okay. Earlier, you were talking about your pet idea that INEC, this is now my own phrasing, that INEC is too obsessed with procuring some so-called sensitive materials from outside of our shows.
Yes.
What is the challenge with INEC patronizing the mint? You have a mint here in Abuja. You also have a mint in Lagos. And then there are also a number of security printing companies that are recognized by government. In Nigeria. Some of them printed checkbooks when checkbooks were fashionable, and I think they still are. They also, every time you say it will take us 3 months to place an order for this to come, are there spirits that are printing these things abroad?
Well, I think what really happened was in 2011. Before 2011, we had always patronized the security printing and minting company. But in 2011, when we assessed the machines they had, some of the machines had gone obsolete, and they didn't have the capacity to print with the speed, with the secrecy that INEC required, and that was how INEC started outsourcing the printing.
That was in 2011.
Yes. So, but I believe that between that time, between 2011 and now, we should have seen an improvement in the affairs of the mint, to the extent that INEC can now find recourse in it to print, sensitive materials. That's my argument, that all you need to do is to make a case with the government which funds the elections, to say that, look, this things can...
What my colleague is saying is 11 years after, we're still going out.
Yes.
You know, I know in some states, you know, where even receipts and whatever are being outsourced, some state governments insisted that their minting and printing, you know, departments in the state should do that, at least to save cost, and they even empower the
So as you do your
administrators.
strategic plan, what was their involvement of the stakeholders? These people that are supposed to be those printing. How do you take them on board from the beginning of the plan so that they are prepared?
Since 2011,
I know also that there are local elections, like by-elections, that INEC has patronized local printers. But for general elections, they are outsourced abroad. But
why should they be outsourced? That is the point. There's an executive order saying by Nigeria.
Exactly. And then you now facilitate. You make sure that you put in place state-of-the-art machines to do this work and the requisite staff to do it. And I think that will reduce a lot of cost.
But let me just throw this in. In the 1994 first non-racial elections in South Africa, when the elections stretched beyond the number of days that they had indicated the elections would take, and they ran out of ballot papers and so on and so forth, the South African government under F.W. de Klerk at the time mandated the military printing press to print ballot papers, and then they used military helicopters to deliver those ballot papers to hard-to-reach locations, Kazankulu and elsewhere, where people then voted. And those votes counted. So every time, just outsource. It's capital flight.
It's unfortunate, really. I think the government is listening to this. Yeah, but you on a final note, please, 30 seconds.
Okay, on the final note, I want to correct an impression here because, for instance, my political party, Action Democratic Party, we have a website. Today, you can register within 2 minutes and become a member, www.adb.ng. And I'm sure other parties also have their website where you can go and register and become a member. And because it's automated, you can just print out the names, you know, like this, you know, without any
I hope you're cognizant of the fact that we may charge you for commercializing your party.
No, I don't, no, it's an important information that is required so that you know that political parties are not just they are not, you know, up to the speed, you know, as far as the issues are concerned.
Okay.
Number two, we are talking about printing of the ballot papers, which is very key. I think the issue here is about credibility. How independent is the print? Because government that you are talking about is involved. It's a player. It's also participating in the elections. And perhaps if you allow the Nigerian minting company to print for us, how are you sure that somebody in government will not influence what they are doing?
But the laws are there, Nick. I mean,
precisely, because if you know
they are there, but the damage has been done. And we know that in this country,
is it not possible
once they have gotten away with something, you go to court, you are just wasting your time.
No, is it not possible to also insist
the laws have been there
on the enforcement of the law, because it is a criminal offense for you to print ballot papers? It is not sufficient to say that, oh, somebody could...
I think that...
It's a criminal offense. I don't know, Nick.
I think his fears can be allayed. Because even as it is now, whenever these sensitive materials are procured, they are deposited at the CBN. And whenever INEC distributes these sensitive materials, they invite political parties to oversight the distribution. To make sure, to satisfy them. No, you can also be invited to the place so that you satisfy yourselves that nothing untoward is happening.
I think I commend INEC for what they are doing.
Gentlemen and ladies, I think we're running short of time here. We need to call it quits at this time. Yeah, Bagi, thank you so much for being part of Good Morning Nigeria this morning. Nick Design, it's our pleasure. Also, Nick Design is the former Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Ene Obi, she is the Country Director, Action Aid. Thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thank you for inviting us. Well, we just want to say that we want more declaration by INEC of results and not courts.
All right,
so
that's
the
great.
judiciary should come in.
INEC is listening, really. Let's get to the world of sports.
Rangers kept their continental hopes alive after a comprehensive 3-0 victory against Kwara United on Sunday. The Flying Antelopes dominated the opening exchanges and scored all 3 goals in the first 18 minutes of the game. O.C. Martins gave Rangers the lead in the 4th minute, while Chidebere Wobodo added the second 7 minutes later. Martin scored the third in the 18th minute. The Enugu Rangers are third on the log with 41 points from 25 matches. At the Pantami Stadium, Gombe United defeated Katsina United 1-0. Holders Akwa United also recorded a 1-0 win against Lubi Stars in Uyo. Babatunde Bello's 39th minute strike gave the Promise Keepers all 3 points in the game. The Nigerian's top flight league continued on Monday when 8-time champions Enyimba traveled to face Shooting Stars. Rivers United seek to stay summit on the NPFL log when the host Niger Tornadoes visit, while Raymond Stars travel to Jos to do battle against Plateau United. And in tennis, Andrei Rublev denied Novak Djokovic a first title of the season by beating the world number 1 in the final of his home tournament at the Serbian Open. World number 8 Rublev dominated the deciding sets to win 6-2, 6-7, 6-0.
Andrei Rublev is the Serbia Open champion. His third title of the year.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Deep thanks for being with us. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Davidson. Please do have a good day.